Well, we just broke down.
That's not good. Not good at all. We're looking at 9.4 volts on the battery.
I moved into this ambulance 2.5 years ago. The lifestyle represented freedom, adventure, and self-reliance, and that spoke to me. Self-reliance and the ability to be resourceful sound great until you have a challenge where you must test yourself. And you don't become self-reliant by shouting those affirmations in the mirror. You become confident in yourself by doing the things that back up who you say you are. If you're on the road long enough, it's inevitable you're going to have a breakdown. Something will fail in the wrong place and the wrong time. And being self-reliant means you should plan for this. You know it's coming. When you're near town, it's no big deal. But when you're way out here, logistics can be the difference between life and death.
More details about the effort to find and rescue Ron and Beverly Barker.
Beverly was found alive. Both vehicles they were traveling with were actually stuck off the main road, and they were in a very difficult spot to even locate.
It's my goal to be as self-sufficient as possible, and planning for failures and self-recoveries. I have a long way to go, not only in tools and gear, but also in knowledge and skill. I carry an array of hand tools, power tools, recovery gear, and spare parts. I took the time to researching my drivetrain and finding the failure points. My engine is known for its legendary reliability, but there's this little tiny $30 sensor that can easily fail and it'll leave you stranded. And that's an easy insurance policy to keep in your glove box. It's the little stuff, and the stuff you never even think about. What about cell service when you break down? Starlink gives me a ton of comfort here. What about a way to get out or grab parts? That's why I have this motorcycle in the back. The more things you fix on the road, the more confidence you build in your abilities as a nomad. I've broken my steering column on the trail and had to rob one from another truck. I've broken 4 lug studs and had to replace them on the side of the road. A glow plug relay failure and other small stuff. This breakdown was another great test, especially in my decision-making abilities when the clock is ticking. This breakdown didn't happen out here in the middle of nowhere. It started while I was in town running errands, and I made the decision to drive back into the open land where this truck would be turned off and would be completely dead in the water. That was my decision, and maybe it'll make more sense later in this video.
The alternator on the truck is going bad, and it just went bad. You can see the battery light just came on. Even if I rev the engine, nothing's coming up. And pretty soon, the windows, they're gonna stop rolling up and down. This is gonna go out, speakers are gonna stop working. So one thing I never really understood about this truck is that right now the batteries are completely dead. I can't roll up the window, I can't play the radio, anything like that. But this is a computer controlled diesel, and I don't understand how it's still running because that computer needs to be functioning. And right now we're sitting at like 8 volts, so I'm surprised that thing hasn't turned off. So we're gonna try to get to camp before his truck shuts off. You know, sometimes you just gotta love the adventure. All right, we're now at 7.6 volts. I really hope my batteries can recover from this. And I really hope this truck doesn't die going up this hill, because this would be a bad spot to die. Oh, come on, big girl. Look at this. All my gauges are off, except for my RPM. 7.2 volts. I'm just trying to level the truck out right now. All right, let's turn it off. Okay, now let me show you what would have happened if I had accidentally turned it off in a parking lot. Okay, that's a good sign. Yep. Dead. Completely dead. Let's see if we can...
These batteries are completely drained, and when you discharge a battery like this past 50% capacity, it begins to cause irreversible damage. I've completely drained mine to the point where they may go bad, and if I don't charge them up, I'm definitely going to need to buy 2 new batteries. So I'm putting a battery charger on them to hopefully save them and so I can do some testing later. So here's the crazy process we're going through right now in the truck. We have the sun up there coming down onto these solar panels here, and these solar panels are just soaking up that sun, then coming all the way down to our battery bank. After the power goes to the batteries, it goes to this inverter, which converts it from 12 volt direct current all the way to 120 volts alternating current. Then I plug in my extension cord to this outlet out here, which brings the power from here all the way over to this trickle charger, which takes that 120 volt power and converts it back to 12 volts, where it goes into these batteries. This is kind of a slow process, but it's a little less jarring on my nice lithium battery bank. But I'm pretty sure that it's the alternator. It made sense when I was driving down the road. The battery voltage just slowly dropped and it was really consistent. But we're gonna go ahead and do a test just to make sure. I just moved everything out of the way, and there it is, my electrical bag. There we go, just what we needed, multimeter. And what we're gonna do with this multimeter here, we're gonna go ahead and move this to the 20 volts. We're getting 12.83 volts. I would say that that battery is fully charged. We actually have to get out of here because I just realized that this is actually a no camping spot. Check this out. I thought this was a post for a camp spot because all the camp spots have posts in this area, but it actually says I can't camp there, which kind of sucks, but we're gonna go ahead and move this truck. Okay, here's the test we're gonna run. I'm gonna go ahead and jump in the truck and start it because it looks like the batteries are decently charged up. Let's see what happens here. Promising. Okay. Right up. Alrighty, you see that it's at 12.02. If the alternator was good, it should be pumping out about 14 volts right here. But let's go ahead and test it real quick with some RPM. So I'm gonna use the RPM controller that came in this ambulance. She's revving right now. No bueno. Let's go ahead and move this truck while we can. So the next place we park is where we're actually going to tear into the truck and replace 2 alternators. Got 2 bad alternators. Maybe I'm trying to be hard on myself today. All right, nice and easy. Our voltage is still high, so I'm fine driving around. I'm looking for a level campsite where it'll be easy for me to crawl under the truck and work. But as I drive around right now, the batteries are slowly getting drained again, so I need to find one quick. Now I'm sure you're wondering why I broke down out here. Why not break down at the auto parts store? There's a few reasons for this, but my biggest fear in a situation like that is I turn the truck off and I can't move the truck for a few days. I saw a guy break down in an O'Reilly's parking lot in Lakewood, Colorado, and by the 3rd night, I saw police and a tow truck. I have all the resources I need. I'd rather fix this out here in peace, where I don't need to worry.
All right, windows are up. Still sitting pretty there.
So that drive took us from 12.4 volts all the way down to 11.7.
All right, this is the new campsite.
And at only 5 miles out of town, this isn't a bad spot at all.
And this is how I'm gonna get into town and get parts.
This motorcycle makes it possible for me to do this repair out here. It's pretty nice to have another vehicle on board.
Can you guys see how I knocked out my back window? Bars went right through the window.
It's a 2004 KTM 450 EXC. It's a dirt bike that could use a few repairs of its own, but it has a reliable engine and it's street legal. I've had this bike since I was 16 years old and it's been pretty damn reliable. And I think it's time to head in and make some dinner. It's so much more relaxing here than it would have been in some parking lot, that's for sure. Alrighty, so it's the next day right now. Just enjoying my coffee. I've been on the phone this morning with O'Reilly's and Napa Auto Parts. This truck is a dual alternator. If I'm not getting any power from the alternators, then that means that both of them are dead. So I gotta replace both. Now, I called O'Reilly's and it sounds like they'll warranty it. It didn't sound like they were going to warranty it at first. In fact, I still haven't warrantied it, so we'll see what happens. They asked, was it installed by a professional? Very professional. I'm already going to have to buy one, so if I have to buy two, that's going to be really shitty. And now I think it's finally time to jump in and get this thing fixed. One thing that I forgot to mention here is that O'Reilly's was warranting the primary alternator, but the lower one, or the secondary alternator, I went ahead and ordered that through Napa, and they were able to get that to me in 2 days because they didn't keep it in stock. So yesterday I had this on the trickle charger for about 3 hours after I ran them down to 7 volts. Probably wasn't enough, but that's a good sign. Oh. Yeah. That's a bummer. When I turned this truck off, we were sitting at about 11.5 volts. And now we're sitting at 7.9. Shoot. That means my batteries are probably toast too. I think this just got a little more expensive. It looks like 2 alternators and 2 batteries. You know, with a truck like this, even though I can work on it myself, 10 grand in an emergency fund just for this vehicle, I think that's kind of a requirement. We're gonna go ahead and put the trickle charger back on. Even though I was convinced I was gonna need to spend $500 on 2 new batteries, I decided to put the trickle charger back on anyway. I wasn't counting on their revival, but I was still holding out for them. Even if they did come back, their life had been significantly shortened. We have an error message right here. It's not wanting to charge these batteries. I gotta admit, this time I'm a little upset. Oh, okay. Now it says it's charging. That's good. So there are some other tests that I was going to do to help diagnose the issue here and make sure that it's the alternators. I did the quick and dirty test, which is just putting this multimeter up to the battery and seeing if the voltage was 14 when the truck was running. It was like 11, so that means I'm not getting power from the alternators. There's some other tests I could do to make sure like the alternator is properly grounded and, you know, just really identifying exactly what it is. But I think right now it's fair to go ahead and take this alternator off and get it replaced. Now let's play the guessing game of what size socket is it. And this is why I always talk about having tools with you. Get a bar here. Right, there we go, breaker bar. Now let's find a socket for this guy. I'm gonna guess that it's an 18. Any of these 3, let's find out. You know, I can't really tell from this angle which one is the idler and which one is the tensioner. I think it's right here. Oh, it's the water pump. It's gotta be this right here. Oh, yep, because you don't even need a socket for it. It's been a little while since I've done this, all right? There we go, that's in. There we go, that loosened the belt. This thing that I'm pulling on here, it has a spring and it constantly keeps tension on this belt to keep it from falling off. Now, I'm gonna take this. There you go. Now this belt can come right off. This is a good time to inspect the belt too. I have a spare belt that I keep with me just in case it ever breaks on the road, but I don't know if I'm gonna install it today. Oh my gosh, this thing is long. The only thing I'm noticing here is that this edge is slightly cleaner than this edge, but I mean, it's so minimal. No cracks or anything. I'm gonna go ahead and reuse this belt and not use my spare belt. Now it's time to go ahead and remove that alternator. This one's gonna be really easy. The one that's gonna be a little bit more difficult is that one, way down there. I'm thinking I'm gonna have to access some stuff from the top and some stuff from the bottom to get that one. So we're gonna start by removing our positive and negative battery leads. So the cool thing is alternators are generally pretty easy jobs. We're just gonna crack these 3 bolts right here. All right, pretty simple. I'm gonna screw that back on. Let's see how this plug works. This is for, I believe this regulates voltage and turns it on and off. So this one should just be a simple press and pull. But I'm gonna go ahead and use a screwdriver for this. Yeah, that looks good. Just gonna push this in and wiggle it out. There we go. We would have wanted to test something here too, but with 2 dead batteries, I'm not testing anything. That's what we need to replace. So here's what this thing does. This is actually what charges your batteries while you're driving, and it's also something that charges my house batteries back there. When the engine's spinning, the belt's spinning, which spins this. And by doing that, it produces electricity. And it's actually pretty easy to test if this is still working. I can go ahead and take a cordless drill and spin it, and then my multimeter on here, and that would tell me if it works or doesn't work. This one is gonna be a lot tougher to access. And even from under here, it's closer. It's still kind of hard to access. This lower alternator is on special order and will be in tomorrow. This thing was deep, and while it was the same 3 bolts, single cable, and an electrical plug, this one took me about 35 minutes to get out. None of my tools would fit down there, so I was trying different size ratchets, extensions, swivels, and even ratcheting wrenches. Even when I did find the right tool combination for the bolt, it was a 1/4 turn at a time on a long bolt. So because I don't have a socket that fits my breaker bar, I'm gonna have to use this, but I'm gonna use a classic trick here. Putting this over this, amplify the torque. Let's see if this works. Wow, got it. I love these moments of working on vehicles. I started removing that bolt, oil started coming out. So, and that bolt doesn't even go into the block. There's nothing behind it. So maybe there was a little leak above it or something, and I don't know. All right, it looks like this thing's coming out. So I gotta be ready to unplug the control whenever that pops up. Okay, so I just got the alternator out of the bottom, and what I thought was potentially an oil leak, well, there's actually a small vent hose that comes out from under the engine. I thought I had an oil leak, but turns out there is just a little vent that's actually used to relieve crankcase pressure. So that's where that oil came from. Now it's time to head into town, get these guys tested, and bring back a new alternator. There's our alternators. This one is about 2 years old. This one, well, it's quite a bit older.
All right, let's go ahead and find out if this guy's gonna warranty it, because yesterday it kind of seemed like he might not warranty it. We'll find out. Hi, how you guys doing? So yesterday I came in for an alternator to get warranted. Just got it here for you guys to test.
Is this the one that's from California?
That would be me.
I haven't looked into anything.
Okay.
We won't know until we actually dig in, because Bradley just asked if it was okay, and I'm like, yes, it's okay. I don't care what store he bought it from, as long as it's from O'Reilly's. He goes, oh, just making sure.
Alrighty, they just warranted that alternator, so looks like we're good.
So they bench tested the alternator and said that it was 100% failed. And that's good news to me because that confirms my diagnosis. So I think I'm going to celebrate with a fun way home.
All right, let's see what we got in store here. Got a lot of weight on my back. Oh, I think I've been on this one before. Oh my God, my back tire is so slick. So slick for this. A lot of weight right now with the alternator in the back. Okay, best way up, I think you take a left. Woo-hoo-hoo. All right. Control, control, control. All right, how do I get out of here? Oh my God, that back tire is so slick. So now let's go ahead and install this thing. All right, and here's the new alternator in all of its glory. Oh, that thing spins nice. Well, let's go ahead and get this thing installed. Okay. So now I just need to plug it in and get this guy attached to the back. Okay. And just like that, the alternator is installed. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to complete this job today because the other alternator is on special order and it'll be in tomorrow. This is exactly why I didn't camp in the parking lot. Okay, now we're checking in on the batteries. It's saying that this battery right here is completely charged. No error signs or anything like that, so
we are going to need to test these. So last night when I turned the truck off, these batteries were at 11.5 volts. And this morning, they were all the way down to 7. So I think they're completely dead. I don't think there's any resurrecting them. But I went ahead and charged it up anyway. And now I'm gonna pull this battery out and leave it out and see if it holds its voltage overnight. And since I couldn't do anything more with the alternators and I was already dirty and in some working clothes, I decided to get a few maintenance items done too. Let's do some brakes. Okay, we're gonna need that. Got our spare belts right here. And the good stuff. Jack we're using. I think the guys at the shop they over torqued them. Those things are pretty tight. Now let's get this truck up in the air. There's our brand new tires. Falcon Wild Peaks. They're pretty cool. So now that we're in here, we need to get the caliper off, replace these two pads, and then we need to do the same thing to the other side. So these rotors are definitely a little older, but when I put my finger across them, there's no grooves. There's little tiny cracks in here, but they're really small. My finger can't catch any of them. This whole thing spins pretty consistently. Now let's get these caliper bolts off. Those are cracked loose. Now we can go on and take them out of there. Pretty worn. These ones have some cracks in them, also pretty worn. Okay, then we have these brand new pads. These match up. I'd have to say that those pads are fresh. The rotor certainly doesn't match the new pads, but this rotor still has plenty of life in it. So something kind of funny here with brakes is that if I go right now and try to put this back on, it's gonna come nowhere close to fitting. So what I actually gotta do here is I gotta push the hydraulic fluid up through here. So we're gonna use this guy to push the caliper back in. Now I'm gonna lower the truck down ever so slightly so I can tighten up those lugs. So we're gonna go ahead and do this truck at 165 foot-pounds, which is why we use this torque wrench. All right, on to the next side. And that's what I did. I spent the next hour or so jacking up each corner of the truck, inspecting the brakes, and replacing all the pads. I'd been putting this off for way too long, and I'm super excited to see how the new pads feel on this 12,000-pound truck. Okay, so I think I'm about done for the day on the truck. I went ahead and removed the alternator, picked one up already, did all 4 brake pads, fronts and rears on the truck. Then I topped off the Dana 80 rear axle with fluid, just because there is a small leak. And last but not least, check the air filters and all the rest of the fluids. Today was a good maintenance day. As a reward for a long day in the sun and dirt, I jumped on the bike and headed down to the river. A good refreshing swim was in order after a long day, and these Colorado rivers are perfect for that. You spend 20 minutes in the water and you come out feeling like a new man, refreshed and clean, ready to head back to the ambulance for dinner and a movie. It's the next morning right now. I got back into my dirty, oily clothes from yesterday. I just got the call from Napa. They said that my specialty alternator just came in, so I'm gonna run into town and go pick that up. But before I do, I'm gonna go ahead and check the voltage on these batteries. They've been charging all day yesterday. They're at 12.8 volts when I took them off the charger. And we're gonna find out now if those batteries dropped in power. All right, it looks like this one held the charge, 12.82 volts. This one also held voltage overnight. And while this is a really good sign, I can't get too happy yet. I still need to do a test while the battery is under load to really find out if I need new ones. Even though no one likes a breakdown, to be honest with you, I've had a lot of fun fixing this one. It feels good to jump on the bike and run into town and grab parts. It's self-reliance at its finest. And even though I'm just 5 miles out of town, I still know that I could do the same thing even if I was 100 miles out. And plus, riding the bike makes it feel like all your problems just disappear. It's therapy for men who don't want therapy. Alright, I think I'm getting it. I didn't have it. In fact, I would spend the next 45 minutes coaxing this thing into place. There's something tough about having your hands this deep in an engine bay. I just don't particularly enjoy. But I think this should be the last bolt. We'll get the other two at the bottom cinched up, get the belt on, and I think we'll be good to go. Alrighty, so now it's time to go ahead and put the belt back on. Here's our old belt. Let's get this thing on the truck. Let's start right here. First, I'm gonna wrap it around the crankshaft pulley. Start tensioning it up. Make sure it's in the grooves. I'm gonna loop this one down here. Came off the crankshaft pulley. I will admit, I don't put on belts too often. I think I'm gonna have to pull it from the bottom. I wish I had someone up there to hold tension on it. Okay. And it looks like we need to get to here. And then we're pretty much done. Okay. Alright, everything feels and looks pretty good. So now it's time to go ahead and start up the truck. The batteries are completely charged. They've been sitting at about 12.8 volts for the last 14 to 16 hours, somewhere in there. So while everything's set up and ready to go, we need to find out if these batteries are going to be any good. We're going to start the truck with the multimeter attached, and we're going to see if the voltage drops below 10. If it drops below 10, then I should probably look at getting new batteries. All right, this should be at 14 volts, so I'm not sure what's going on here. This alternator's spinning. Oh, there we go. It's like it just kicked on. I think we're good to go. Got 14.3 volts in there. Let's check this other one. Same thing. Well, it looks like everything's working. The truck's at 14.4 volts, so the alternators are charging the batteries. The batteries didn't drop down below 10 volts, so I'm gonna run it as it is. I don't think it needs new batteries. And I am so stoked that I also got the brakes done while I was out here, and air filter and all that other stuff, because I was able to ruin just one pair of clothes and not actually, get everything greasy. Pump these brakes a little bit. There it goes. Cool, well I think I'm gonna have to take her for a drive. And just like that, the truck is back on the trail with a clean bill of health. Both alternators were working and the brakes felt so much stronger. This breakdown wasn't as bad as it could have been. In fact, this was a pretty easy fix, but I was still broken down for 3 days and had to wait for parts. This failure could have left me needing to pay for a tow, a mechanic, and a few nights in a hotel to get fixed. Instead, it was $250, and I'm pretty happy with that. Solving situations like this make me feel more and more comfortable being out here. Just knowing I can rely on myself and the gear I keep on board. And now, It's time to keep moving. And if you like this video, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. If you do want to help support the channel, there is a way to do that. It's through my Patreon page. I do a monthly call with all of my members over there. Catch you guys in the next video.